Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Therapy. Been a hot minute. Want to talk about dreams today. I want to play a game called Glitch Hikers, but it's very narrative. And I think I might want to play it and record it because it feels very introspective, but it doesn't feel like it's VGT. Anyway, I don't know if I've made a VGT about dreams before. I'm sure I have in some way, shape, or form. But today, I don't know. I want to talk about the notion of a dream a little bit. It was hitting me hard yesterday. Time has been incredibly elusive lately. It hit me hard yesterday, and I was thinking about running towards a dream. And you know how if you don't have a dream necessarily, it's very hard to run towards a dream, right? The enemy that you're fighting is a lot easier to fight when you can see it. In this case, a mountain is easier to climb when you can, see the mountain, right? If you're climbing a really tall mountain, you might not always see the top of it. And I guess the metaphor kind of works, because when you're climbing it, you can't just kind of step away and see the top, right? And I think sometimes a dream can feel like that. Suppose you have like some startup, and I say this example because I'm a software engineer. I'm not at a startup, but suppose you're at a startup and you're coding and you're sick and tired and you're, losing your sanity, right? You might not be able to see the top of the mountain, but you can kind of take a minute and zoom out, right? And then remind yourself, thought I was going to have protection there. Remind yourself what you're fighting for. But when you're fighting for something, again, it's easier to see what you're fighting for, especially. And I had this notion. I'm 30 days into no caffeine, so let's go. I had this notion that it's kind of depressing. I think I've talked about the quote in the past. Is my mouse on screen? It better not be. Ha 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 ha. I got him. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. This whole notion that the time is going to pass anyway. So a friend of mine, he's writing a book. He's been writing this book for a few years now. And he posted like a new chapter and how he's been outlining it. And he said some comment about like, oh, it's taken X amount of months or whatever to get here, but feels good, right? And I was like, well, the time was going to pass anyway. So like, good job, man. You did it. And the way that this plays into dreams is, and I'm not talking about the dreams you experience when you sleep. I'm talking about having a dream, right? Seeing the future that you. And it's been so long since I've made videos, so I'm just not used to talking this consistently, and I forget to breathe. But that was so unfortunate. I've talked a lot about the future on this podcast, according to YouTube's categorization. Don't mind me. On this show, on this series, on this whatever. I'll call it a show. That feels really cool, actually. VGT show. I've talked a lot about the future and looking ahead and planning, if you will, and giving yourself this space, I guess. To think about what you're going towards, and thinking too much in the future can be anxiety ridden, and I'm very scared to talk not scared to talk about it. It feels very personal to talk about today's thing, so I'm just kind of going for it anyway. But pretty much this notion that I was thinking about yesterday was, what if instead of trying to run towards a dream, you run away from a nightmare? And I use the word nightmare because that's often the antithesis of dreams, right? Dreams are good, nightmares are bad, generally speaking. So for me, for example, right, I just reread, not reread, I never read it. I only watched it. Horimiya, it's a rom-com, slice of life anime. Debatably one of the best out there, of course. But I discovered that it was a webcomic before it was a manga, and the drawings on the webcomic were like, they're not good, but it doesn't matter that they're not good or not. I'm just objectively, compared to manga and whatever, it was just like someone was having fun, right? And again, this is not a bad thing. It's fine. I'm just trying to make sure it doesn't sound like I'm being judgmental, because I'm not. I didn't judge that. I just kind of noticed, oh, like I expected this to be like to some quality to be picked up by, right? But it doesn't have to be picked up into a manga and then eventually anime. And I think the thing that I've been the closest to the answer of what is my dream that I've ever gotten really is just making something that, like Horimiya, reaches out and touches a lot of people. And for me, that physical version of that is a video game or a board game. I don't know. I can't see myself making something. So go through production costs and everything, but a video game feels to me more versatile. And I still think about Seashell, the video game that I want to make, of many. And you know, my friend writing these chapters of his book, even just saying it out loud now, it's like, oh my god, it has been a few years that he's been writing this thing. Like, that's crazy. That time is gonna pass anyway, whether he wrote a book or not, no matter how slow it was. And that's, you know, it to me feels genuinely inspiring, because it's a perfect example of like the time was gonna pass anyway. But anyway, point is, if you can't motivate yourself or inspire yourself or kick yourself in the butt to go chase a dream, what if you run away from a nightmare? I'm gonna die so I can get to the next level. And I don't know, I just think this is a fascinating concept in some way. I gotta play with Paz. Because I don't really know how to phrase this. Food for thought, right? But it's like, sure, I want to make a game, but I don't feel motivated by attaining, you know, that dream or whatever. And so you can play with this notion of like, okay, well, it's been 6 years. It's technically been 8 years since the idea of Seashell was born. It was 2 years later that I said, I want to make this into an animated short. And it has since been at least 4 years since I want to make it into a game. 3 years since I've actually done anything about that. And the 3 years have passed, and and it's not around. And so you can think of this notion of like, well, in 3 more years, in 5 more years, in 8 more years, am I still gonna be thinking, where would I be if Seashell was made? Because I remember when I first made my first Minecraft minigame, it was called Cauldron Wars. I remember finishing it and thinking, like, because it was pretty popular, it was really fun, I had learned so much, it was my first big development project, and I remember thinking, like, in the kitchen, I was like, man, I wonder where I'd be right now if I never finished Cauldron Wars, and kept telling myself, I'll finish it, because it did take a while, I was procrastinating. And I find myself in the opposite dilemma, where Seashell isn't created. Right? So slow. And it's depressing in a way, because you'd think if you don't do something for a while, you don't have an adamancy about it. But for some reason, I constantly come back to game development and game design. And now I'm thinking, you know, where does all my pro level productivity planning come into this? I can put aside time each day, I know how to do that, but motivating myself to do it, to actually get it done, is a wildly different situation. And another thing I've spoken about on the show before, it's really weird calling this a show, but I'm going to keep doing it. The thing I've spoken about on the show before is when I lost a bunch of weight, I did keto. A large part of the reason I did it was because martial arts, and I guess, you know, I can say retroactively parkour, a lot of things aren't necessarily possible, or things are more difficult. It's not that they're impossible. I shouldn't say that. I mean, I just felt like I had a lack of freedom. Let's put it that way. I had a lack of freedom in certain movements. And honestly, I still do. Like, it wasn't because of weight. For a lot of, hamstring flexibility and everything. And that's another way that I think about this. Is like, do I really want to be telling myself to do mobility drills 3 years from now? I've been telling myself to do it for like 2 years. I've injured both of my shoulders now. Come on, bro. Get with the program. And anyway, so it's like running toward this dream for some reason, right, isn't enough to get myself to kick myself in the ass and be like, all right, go code seashell, or go draw seashell, or I hate Paz. I'm sorry, this sucks. I don't hate Paz. I just don't like playing as Paz. This idea of being super mobile and super flexible and being able to do these cool things and having so much more control when I'm kicking in Muay Thai, right? And feeling more comfortable in Jiu-Jitsu and not feeling like my lack of mobility is holding me back. And not feeling like I have to take 3 days of rest because my feet and shins hurt after I run, right? It's physical and mental battles. Also, the physical is mobility, the mental is seashell. I'm speaking in these two realms because both of them matter to me, and I think a lot of people might not care about one, but care about the other. Anyway, and so there's this idea that I have these situations that I sometimes play out in my head, and that's kind of how I access my internal thinking most of the time. And I found myself saying in this situation of like, there came a point where I realized that it's not always about chasing a dream. Sometimes it's about running away from a nightmare. And so I wonder, going forward, again, I wouldn't recommend doing this, but I feel like living the next 3 to 6 years and getting things done on seashell and doing mobility with the thought in the back of my head being, I don't want to keep wanting this in X amount of years. And then eventually getting there is far better than trying to find the secret sauce to motivate me to chase that dream or whatever. Does that make sense? And then not getting it, right? Because, I still don't really believe that motivation exists. I think there are definitely times when it happens, but people who do things, and I've experienced this in the past, right? A past version of myself. Like, I wasn't motivated all the time. It just didn't exist. I wasn't motivated to quit YouTube. I literally installed a blocker, right? Now, I barely watch YouTube, and as a result, I barely make YouTube videos, but that's the point. Motivation is not gonna be the thing that always sticks around. But I feel like the status quo is, and my idea here probably isn't very original, I'm gonna be honest. I'm sure someone has talked about this somewhere before. But the status quo seems to be like, define your dream, do what you want to do. Chase after that mountain. Go climb that mountain. Become your future self. Visualize yourself in 5 years and become that person now, today. But what if instead you visualize who you don't want to be in 5 years? Maybe that's the most straightforward way I can do this, right? In 5 years, I don't want to be thinking, seashell. In 5 years, I don't want to be like, oh, my hip feels imbalanced while I walk. Let me do mobility drills sometime soon. It's kind of assuming that you can either chase your dream or recede into a nightmare. You can also stay stagnant. I'm sure that's possible. Honestly, I feel like I'm pretty stagnant right now, right? I have got a great job. I'm doing something I relatively enjoy doing. I say relatively because I enjoy coding and programming, but the end result is not where I want to be at the end of the day. I.e. ads, advertisements. So I'm kind of stagnant in the sense of human passion and creativity. Insert nihilism here, or Nietzsche's take on nihilism at least, or kind of define nihilism, didn't he? But anyway. Anyway, it feels like it can be equally as powerful, if not more so. For me, at least, more so powerful, by far. To envision staying where I am. And there are people who probably don't mind staying where they are. I think I said this before. I hope I've said this before. But it's like, there are people out there who, you know, come back after a day of work and watch the game, crack open a beer, watch the game, and that's the end of their day. And they're happy. And I envy that. But that is not my happiness, right? I could be content, but I don't know if I'd want that. In some sense, that's how I've been living. I mean, I don't drink, but it's like, it's a good metaphor for how I've been living in some sense. And I just think if I, you know, keep wondering to myself, seashells, it's gonna happen, guys. I'm gonna make my dream come true. That, I don't know, it's like it doesn't work for me. And so it's this more running away from the nightmare that I'm trying to unlock, trying to achieve. And it's just something I want to talk about because it's scary to talk about it, I think, especially in such an open environment. Don't touch me, you lemur. Literally. Because it feels, you know, very personal. However, I think it's a good idea. And maybe I'll try it for a little bit. I'm not going to actively visualize being miserable, right? You can imagine yourself being happy. There's nothing against that. But instead of trying to dig deep and find my true motivation and try to find the incentive, try to find the coal that will forever keep the fire of life lit. It's like I've kind of already found that. I kind of already found the thing that does that for a lot of aspects of my life. But completing seashell, learning Japanese, becoming more mobile, doesn't have anything to do with that thing, that fire, that kindling, that coal, right? It's completely unrelated. And I can try and psych myself out and make them related, but I've kind of gone down that road, and it's like, I can say again if you want me to. But I think, I don't know, I'm starting to really believe that you can go after a dream by running away from your nightmare. And I think I said this earlier, I digressed and forgot to finish my point, but it assumes there's some linearity here, and this is when I went into talking about my stagnant thoughts. It assumes there's a linear spectrum of what can possibly happen. It assumes that you either go left, I don't know why it's left in my head, by the way, that's kind of fascinating, left towards a dream, or right towards a nightmare. Right, if you think about a straight line. You can either go left or you can go right. Or you can stay in the middle. Oh, that's where my whole stagnant thing came in. And it's like if you run away from the right side, you'll eventually approach the left side. If you're able to run towards the left side, you'll end up running away from the right side. I should rephrase. If you end up running away from your nightmare, you approach your dream as a side effect. And you can one day say, oh, I did it. The time passed anyway. But if you run towards your dream, the distance between you and the nightmare grows ever more distant. And I wanted to rephrase it that way because I'm just realizing this now. When you make the distance from that nightmare further and further away, you are further and further away from it. And I wonder if you get far enough away, the nightmare doesn't feel like it'll actually happen anymore, and so you stop short of your dream. And so if you continue to remind yourself of what your dream is, maybe you can get there. But maybe you become far enough that the nightmare isn't scary enough. But if you constantly think about it from the nightmare point of view, the 3 years is gonna pass regardless of what happens. This lemur is so scary. I'm saying 3 years because I feel like I could make Seashell in 3 years, but I also suck at art and music. So, but again, it's like the webcomic I mentioned at the start. Like if I just start making the crappy art, the crappy music, and iterating over time, like Stardew Valley, kind of still an inspirational story. These dreams just will kind of happen. You know, my friend who's writing his book, it's like, yeah, it's taken a while, but his goal is just to, I don't know what drives him. I should ask him about that. At this point, maybe it's just become part of his habit. But, yeah, I mean, they say dream big, but what if you make your nightmares big by looking through it? I'm coming up on the end of this train of thought, it appears. About to get an achievement. So I'll leave it at that, because I one day want to make a game called Seashell. I'll rephrase. I one day want to release the game called Seashell. I've got a pitch for it. I've got a slide deck. At least once or twice a week I think about it. If not, some weeks it's every other day. Ideas for it, concepts. People out there know of it. But it's almost like it seems more possible that it's just going to end up getting done if I just remind myself, hey, you really want to be thinking in a couple of years that you're not going to have it done yet again? Because it's like, you know, I made devlogs about it and then I never really got much done, and it's like those devlogs were a reality, and all of a sudden that reality, I guess, sufficed, right? I was living my dream. I was making the game Seashell, and then it just stopped. But I have a new goal defined, you know, for the release of that game, right? And what I want to grow from it, to spout from it, to erupt because of its existence, right? You little, okay, that's a sign from the universe. So yeah, thanks for watching and or listening. Much appreciate you stopping by. But let me know if you have any thoughts and or questions, comments, or concerns in the comments down below. We got a Proton email in the description if you ever want to ask me questions. I want to get back into making videos. No idea if it's going to happen. Just been toying with the idea. So have a good one. And as always, don't forget to stay awesome. Is that it? Have a good one. I already said that. Anyway, peace.